Welcome to BOC GrangeMouth. BOC takes safety very seriously and has a legal duty under the Health and Safety at Work Act to provide safe and healthy working conditions for all employees, visitors and contractors. Inductions to BOC sites are made up of a number of different modules depending on the BOC site you're working on. Each is accompanied by a written test which you must pass before you're allowed to work on site. This module aims to describe BOC GrangeMouth in detail and the procedures and controls that are in place to ensure your safety whilst on site. Our goal as a company is zero accidents. Please ensure that your actions whilst on this site do not increase the risk of accidents to yourself or others. Introduction of site activities and current operations. BOC GrangeMouth consists of 4 nitrogen production plants and a dry air system. Adjacent to the site is a BOC Gas and Gear Centre, which is accessed by Gate 1. The Gas and Gear Centre is not covered by this induction. A, B, C and D plants are nitrogen generators which produce nitrogen by the cryogenic distillation of air. The nitrogen produced from these plants is supplied via pipelines to customers in the GrangeMouth area. BOC GrangeMouth also supplies high-purity, high-pressure nitrogen and compressed dry air via pipelines to customers. Access to site. Access to BOC GrangeMouth is strictly controlled and is via Gate 2. Contractors and visitors who've been inducted at GrangeMouth site and issued with an ID card may enter the car park via the card-activated gate but must sign in at the Permit to Work office. This is very important to ensure that all personnel can be accounted for in the event of an emergency site evacuation. After signing in, all visitors or contractors must wait until they've made their presence known to BOC staff to receive permission to proceed into production areas. All visitors to the site must be accompanied by a BOC employee at all times until an induction has been completed. All personnel without swipe cards must register their presence on site with the facilities engineers via the intercom at the entrance gate. Fire alarm and evacuation procedures. This is the sound of the general alarm at BOC GrangeMouth. If the general alarm sounds, you must leave your workstation immediately and report to the emergency assembly point at main production site gate, Gate 2. You must not leave this area until the head count has been completed and the all clear has been given by BOC. If a full off-site evacuation is required, a vocal instruction will be given by BOC personnel. Safety signs. While on site, you are likely to see various different types of safety signs. The main categories are warning signs, black and yellow or orange, which are warning of a nearby hazard, such as danger from electricity or a wet floor. Mandatory signs, usually blue and white, give you an instruction that you must obey. These usually relate to specific PPE to be used in that area. Prohibition signs, black object image within a red circle and with a crossbar. These are similar to some road signs and indicate an action that is prohibited in a specific area. Again, they must be obeyed. Safe condition signs, green and white, indicate the location of escape routes, emergency exits, first aid equipment, emergency showers, and eye wash bottles. Take note of these signs in the area where you're working. PPE. At BOC GrangeMouth, all personnel are required to wear head protection, feet protection, eye protection and high visibility clothing as a minimum whilst on site. Hearing protection is also required in certain areas of the site and is indicated by local signs. PTW. The permit issuing office is adjacent to the HV substation building. Permits will be issued by facility engineers. All contractors who accept a permit must first undergo Permit to Work acceptor training. Permit acceptors may not leave colleagues unsupervised. For planned maintenance activities, Risk assessments and method statements must be available to facility engineers at least 72 hours prior to the issue of the permit. Permits must be adhered to at all times and returned punctually at the end of the working day. Smoking. Smoking is strictly forbidden on all sites except in designated smoking areas. In this case, the smoking shelter is located at the back of HV substation building. Mobile phone policy. Mobile phones interfere with instrumentation on site and can also act as an ignition source. Your mobile phone must be switched off whilst in instrument cabins. Mobile phones can be used in all other open areas of the site. Mobile phone use is strictly prohibited whilst driving. Failure to comply will result in you being permanently removed from site. Drugs and alcohol. No drugs or alcohol are allowed on site. BOC can elect to test anyone who is believed to be under the influence of alcohol or drugs and will do so in the event of an accident. Anyone found to be under the influence will be told to leave immediately and reported to their manager. Use of walkways. When walking around the site, personnel must observe normal road safety procedures by keeping to designated footpaths and by taking care when crossing roads. Site security. The site is monitored 24 hours per day by a closed-circuit TV system, and under the Data Protection Act, we must inform you that you will be recorded. Normal access and exit is through the main gate only. Entry to process buildings. There are risks on site associated with entering oxygen and nitrogen facilities with oxygen enrichment and nitrogen asphyxiation. Safety signs have been posted into all entrances to process buildings. There are also risks associated with flammable gas in boiler rooms. In order to reduce the risk from these hazards, BOC has installed fixed gas detection systems in areas of higher risk. These buildings are clearly marked. Control room. In the event of an oxygen alarm, the green flashing light will go out and a red light and audible alarm will sound. Any person in the area should leave the area and report to the office. Compressor rooms. In the event of an oxygen alarm, the green flashing light will go out. Any person in the area should leave the area and report to the office. Boiler rooms. In the event of a flammable gas alarm, there will be an audible alarm. Any person in the area should leave the area and report to the office. Any person entering a process building must first still obtain a personal gas monitor from PTW office and be trained in its use before entering the building. If the gas monitor alarm sounds whilst you're in the building, then you must leave the building immediately and report the incident to a member of staff on site. Restricted access areas. A number of areas on site have restricted access, including plant shop areas and electrical substations. For your own safety, you must not enter these areas unless you are accompanied by a BOC employee or authorized to do so. Plant shops on site house compression machinery and pipework, and the possibility of oxygen enrichment or deficiency exists. For this reason, they are classified as restricted areas and no unauthorized access is permitted. Should access be required for any reason, this must be agreed with the BOC contact and a personal oxygen monitor will be issued. This must be used whenever entering these areas. Use of BOC equipment. Personnel must not touch or use equipment or tools for which specific training or authorization has not been received. If permission is granted to use BOC facility or equipment, then it must be left in a clean and tidy state. First aid arrangements. If you have an accident whilst working on site, you must report to the main office building. Here, first aid can be administered by a number of qualified BOC first aiders. All accidents, however small, must be reported to a member of the BOC staff. Incident and near-miss reporting. Please report any unsafe condition to your site contact. It is very important that near misses are reported to a member of staff in the main control room. Near-miss reporting is critical to the continuous reduction of incidents within GrangeMouth. Traffic. BOC GrangeMouth contains a significant number of vehicles on site, and attention must be paid to their movements. The speed limit for all vehicles on site is 10 miles per hour. This is monitored using speed guns and is strictly enforced. Vehicles must follow the correct travel routes on site as indicated by signage. Seat belts must be worn at all times whilst driving on site. Vehicle parking areas are marked out on site and must be used. Vehicles may not park in areas indicated by hatched boxes or on double yellow lines. For the purposes of safety, vehicles must be reversed into all parking spaces. Dedicated pedestrian walkways are installed on site and must be used at all times. Vehicles must not encroach on these walkways. Pedestrians have right of way at all times. Instrument gas. Instrument gas on GrangeMouth site can be air or nitrogen, and because of this potential confusion, contractors are not permitted to use site services unless specifically authorized. Do not assume that confined spaces containing instrument gas are safe to enter, and never use instrument gas to purge a confined space. Noise. Noise is a common hazard at GrangeMouth site. Hearing protection must be worn in process buildings and certain areas of the site, and this is indicated by local signs. Asbestos. Asbestos can be present in the building fabric and plant equipment. If in doubt, refer to the asbestos register. Any work which may bring you into contact with asbestos-containing materials must be undertaken with a permit to work and in conjunction with a method statement and full risk assessment. COSH. The control of substances hazardous to health, known as COSH regulations, require that a risk assessment must be carried out to identify control measures prior to the use of any chemicals on site. Chemicals must only be brought onto site if accompanied by safety data sheets and stored in a suitable container. The on-site COSH register and data sheets must be consulted by all contractors prior to using any BOC-owned chemicals on site. This will advise all precautionary measures for chemical handling. Waste control. All waste produced at GrangeMouth site is strictly controlled and must be disposed of in accordance with the site environmental procedures and duty of care policy. No chemicals should be discharged to sewers, drains, or to ground under any circumstances. You must ensure that any waste generated by your activity is disposed of in the appropriate designated skips on site, and that special arrangements are made for the disposal of hazardous waste. In all cases, approval must be granted from BOC prior to disposal of any waste or its removal from site. Contractor welfare facilities. These are the welfare facilities for use by all contractors. Please ensure the facility is left in a clean and tidy state after use. Vehicles must be parked in the main car park. Lifting equipment. All lifting equipment for use on BOC sites must comply with relevant legislation, and only equipment that is in test should be used. Inspection and test records should be available for inspection. Any lifts using mobile cranes will require a certificate of lifting as part of the PTW system and be under the direct control of an appointed person. It is a GrangeMouth site requirement that equipment is not lifted over running machinery. Electrical hazards. All portable electrical equipment must be 110-volt, center tap to earth, and accompanied by a portable appliance test certificate, and must be inspected by you prior to use. Any higher voltage equipment must be approved for use by an authorized BOC employee. The use of 240-volt electrical equipment is prohibited. Generators may be brought onto site only on specific request and must be approved before use. Generators must be earthed and checked by a BOC competent person prior to use. Daisy chain of extension cable is not permitted on site, only one lead must be connected to an appliance. All electrical equipment may be visually inspected by BOC prior to use on site. Electrical installation works. All electrical work undertaken on BOC site must fully comply with the requirements of the Institute of Electrical Engineers Regulations BS 7671, including design, installation test and inspection. Full test and inspection certification must be supplied for all types of equipment where it's to be connected to a BOC electrical supply. No electrical equipment can be connected to a BOC system without written permission. The use of electrical test equipment is covered by special requirements. Any equipment used must be approved by a BOC competent electrical authority in writing before use. Working at height. Working at height is dangerous, and falls from height can result in serious injury. Working off ladders must be limited to work that is low risk and for short duration. Ladders should generally be used for inspection or access purposes only. Adequate safety controls should be put in place to prevent falls from people or material. Excavations. Excavations need to be planned and executed properly in order to avoid harm to people or damage to property. Any excavation deeper than 150 mm will require a survey to be carried out using a scanner and a supporting certificate of excavation to be issued as part of the PTW system before the work started. If excavations are involved in your work, then these must be identified to the permit issuer. As a general rule, always assume that underground services are present unless proven otherwise. Firefighting equipment. Firefighting equipment is positioned at various points around GrangeMouth site. This equipment should only be used to tackle fires if it is safe to do so, and by personnel who have been trained to use it. Personnel must not remove or tamper with firefighting or any other emergency equipment. If you notice a fire or potential emergency developing, break one of the nearest emergency call points and proceed immediately to the nearest safe assembly area. Lead Safe Program. GrangeMouth site operate a Lead Safe program, which is a management activity used to observe people's behaviors in real work situations, engage that person to discuss the consequences of their safe or unsafe behaviors, change unsafe behaviors by mutual agreement, demonstrate visible leadership, uncover unsafe acts in the workplace, recognize and reward safe behavior, motivating staff to behave safely. It is non-punitive and anonymous. There shall still, however, be consequences for repeated unsafe behavior. Golden Rules. GrangeMouth site is committed to the implementation of Linde Group Golden Rules. These are displayed on posters around the site. Summary. The controls and systems outlined in this presentation have been developed to minimize risks to people, plant and equipment, and a very serious view is taken of any breach of the rules. Our goal as a company is zero accidents. Please ensure that your actions whilst on this site do not increase the risk of accidents to yourself or others. Remember, safety is everyone's responsibility. It is 100% of our behavior 100% of the time.